Welcome to At the Vines, the podcast that brings you inside the world of the vines, a global community of adventurers, storytellers, wine lovers, and winemakers. Through unforgettable experiences in the world's most iconic wine regions, our members connect with place, culture, and each other in ways that are both personal and profound. Each episode will introduce you to fascinating people, our members, our team, winemakers, and friends we've met along the way, and explore what inspires them to travel boldly, live fully, and craft wines that reflect their own unique stories. This week on At the Vines, Brian and I sit down with Pilar Brito, a rising voice in wine education and culture. Pilar shares her journey from discovering wine during law school to building a career around helping others develop their taste and appreciation for wine. We talk about her belief that wine should stay aspirational, her evolving views on natural wines, and how wine can be a powerful tool for personal expression and community. Please enjoy this conversation with Pilar Brito. Pilar, welcome. So glad to have you back at the Vines.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So we're going to dive largely into your world of wine education, and we'll get into whether that's the right term for it or not. But take us back. What was your first memorable experience with wine, and how did you get started? How did you go from oh, this is interesting to I really like wine? And even then, how did it go from there to being, hey, this might be a business, this might be a career?
Yeah, okay. So I did not grow up in a wine drinking family whatsoever. My mom actually doesn't drink at all to this day, although I have had her have a couple glasses of orange wine, and she's like, ooh, okay, this is kind of interesting.
Interesting way to start.
Yeah, but it works, whatever works. And my dad, he drinks a little bit, but I mean, growing up, even a $10 bottle of wine for him was I don't know if I want to go, I don't know if I want to spend that much. So it did not grow up in a wine drinking family. But we moved to Europe when I was a kid. We moved to Italy when I was 11, lived there for 2 years, and then Spain for 2 years after. That started a really huge love of travel and cuisine. Even just going to Italy and as a kid and getting to experience the food there, the culinary scene in America, especially where I live, just was not what it is even now. And so it was a complete revelation for me. So got very into food and travel. And I think for anyone who's into those, wine is sort of a natural path and a natural next step. So I had always been interested in getting into it, but it really wasn't until law school. So my law school it was very fortunate and very spoiled. My law school had a very intense wine society where the students organized it. A few of them were on the board every year, which I later joined. And for, I think, decades, they had been building these relationships with producers who would come to the school and host tastings for free every week with the idea that, you guys are going to be amazing customers in the future. It was fantastic marketing, actually. To this day, we had Bollinger come every year. I get Bollinger as a gift, all the time. They taught me how to open my first bottle of champagne properly. I have very positive associations with everyone who came to the law school. So it was a great business move on their end. But the first tasting when I was a 1L was Chateau Margaux. And
that's a good way to start.
Yeah. So they came every 3 years, not every year. So I got very lucky. And I just remember trying Chateau Margaux, and I was already mentally primed for wanting to get into wine and feeling I could see this being something I'm into. I'm kind of in my early mid 20s. I am now in law school. I want to be a more sophisticated person. I want to have more sophisticated hobbies. I don't have a lot of disposable income yet, but I'm about to. It was already on my mind. And I just tried Chateau Margaux, and I was this is the most incredible thing I've ever had. I mean, I think that a lot of people, before they've had an exposure to a really, really great wine, think, oh, I can't taste the difference between a good wine and a bad wine. Once you have a really extraordinary wine, it becomes very evident.
There's a difference between a really good wine and an extraordinary wine.
Yes, totally. And I like a lot of really good wines too now, but I think that having that extraordinary wine, it was just a complete revelation, both because of the taste, and I also think because of how the rep, and I try to carry this through in my content, because of how the rep talked to us about it. As you obviously know, Chateau Margaux is this incredibly expensive, revered wine. And something that I still am pretty against when it comes to the wine industry and wine education is this trend of hyper accessibility, of feeling you have to dumb it down for the consumer. Mm-hmm. I think so many people think, people feel wine is inaccessible. I need to make it as simple as possible. I need to make it as fun as possible.
There's nothing in the middle. It's detailed tasting notes of boysenberry or, hey, this is good.
Yeah, exactly. Or here are the $10 bottles of Prosecco to get for your girls' night because you're intimidated by wine, so that must be what you want. And that wasn't, when I was wanting to become a wine consumer but wasn't knowledgeable about wine yet, how I wanted to be addressed was exactly how the Chateau Margaux rep addressed me, which was, okay, you're a smart, sophisticated person. You don't know a lot about this yet, but you're going to. And I'm going to bring you along with me. I'm going to greet you with warmth. I'm going to make you feel welcome, but I'm not going to dumb this down for you because you're totally smart. And this is a very academic, like wine is an academic, sophisticated, aspirational product. And he didn't try to take the aspiration out of it or act like it was anything other than what it was, which is something that requires a little bit of effort. And I really liked that about the way he talked to me. So I think both just trying it, I was like, oh my God. And then the way he addressed all of us really made me want to get more into it and feel like, okay, this is something that I can fully experience. So from there, I joined the board of the Wine Society in law school, started being the one coordinating all of those tastings. I started doing blind tasting competitions, which they're so funny. I mean, if you guys have seen, are you familiar with HBO Real Sports?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so there's one on blind tastings.
I didn't know that.
I'm in 5 seconds of it. my friend from my blind tasting team is like one of the main people that they follow throughout it because he was on the blind tasting team at Oxford, was the best taster, and then came to law school with me, and they followed his whole journey. It was really funny. But if you watch it, like everyone's in all these crazy robes and is like spitting into buckets, and they have all these like sideways berets. It looks so pretentious, but it's so much fun. It was such a great experience. So started doing that, got my sommelier certification, or initial sommelier certification in law school. And then I started at my law firm afterwards. And it felt like I want to get into wine, but I had spent 3 years in law school. And especially if you spend 3 years on law school in the US, it's like you really should go be a lawyer for a little bit. So
plus you developed a taste for Chateau Margaux, so you had to make some money.
Trust me, I was very well aware of that. I was aware of what needed to happen. So I went to my law firm, honestly really liked a lot of things about it, but wine just was still this huge passion on the side. Like I developed friendships with all of the somms at Wally's in Santa Monica because that's where I was working at the time. Great place. Love that entire team so much. They were so nice to me. Some of my first friends in LA, actually. So I was trying to make friends with everyone in the wine industry in the city. I was hosting pretty much monthly like wine dinners at my house for my friends and just kind of lecturing to them about wine, which I think I'm like, oh my God, my poor friends. But I think they enjoyed it. And then I started doing more certifications. So I did my WSET level 3 2 years ago, and that is a much more intense jump from some of the intro courses. And I really enjoyed it. I found it super rewarding. I felt like I wanted to keep going deeper. And that was sort of when I started thinking, I've been a lawyer for a few years. This is still clearly this thing I'm really passionate about. I am clearly willing to put a ton of time into it outside of work and spend, late nights and early mornings trying to learn more about this. I think this is still the industry I really want to be in. So I can leave it there because I've talked for a while, but I started thinking about, okay, how can I break into this industry? Because this is what I really want to be in. And that led to where I am now. And I'm happy to answer more about that if you like, but I just talked quite a bit.
No, that's, and it's interesting and this happens for most of us aren't able to turn it into a job, but that was similar to me. Like I was into wine. I'm like, how can I get more into it and not necessarily drink more of it or even learn specifically about it, but it's kind of like be around it more because part of it is the people and the people you meet along the way. And as
absolutely.
You say, it's like if the person from Chateau Margaux wasn't this interesting person who met you where you were and it was charming and all of these things, it would have been like, okay, it might, you might not be here today.
No, not at all. And wine people, I feel like wine people in general are really, really good people. Like even when I was trying to break into the industry, I had so many people who were extremely, like Bobby Stuckey got on the phone with me for like an hour. I've never met him in my life. We've never talked since. I have no idea why he did that for me. But for those of you who aren't familiar, he's this extremely legendary master sommelier. Just people in the wine industry have a massive amount of respect for him. Just saying that for the benefit of anyone who's listening. But wine people are just extraordinarily generous with their time because it's a real passion industry. You have to be very passionate about it to be in it. It's a very difficult industry in many ways. What I do within it is probably one of the easiest things. And it's a feel-good product. Like people just love sharing it. So I think if you put yourself in the right situations, it's actually very easy to meet the right people who will get you into wine and make you feel comfortable. But you have to find those people who kind of hit it in the middle of meeting you where you are while keeping the aspirational quality.
Well, and that I think is the gateway between kind of enjoying wine and buying some wine and like really getting into it. Once you meet some of the people. I was very fortunate when I first got into wine. I was living in Los Angeles. I went to Napa with a friend, and we didn't just drink some good wines, but we did. But she knew people, and so we met winemakers and farmers. And so once I met the people and understood the stories behind the wines and the places, that they were when you think about, oh, what this wine from this Napa Cab from Contessa, and you've been up at the Contessa Lake, and you're like, oh my God, now I get it. Like, of course, this wine's great. It's one of the most beautiful places in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that connection with the people is really what's interesting, and it's also what's driven mine and our passion for kind of. They're not really second tier regions, but not the like blue chip 5 or 6 regions, not necessarily, Napa, Burgundy, Bordeaux, but like Priorat, Paso Robles, even places like Mosul that are just a little, because they're in Argentina for sure, just because they're a little bit off the beaten path. When you go there, a lot of wineries, you're going to meet the winemaker or their family or the owner. And that just for me the stories behind it was really powerful.
I completely agree. I think I've often said that wine is one of the best ways to experience the world. I think that it's such a great way because wine and cuisine also developed alongside each other. Wine and culture developed alongside each other. It's a really ancient product. So getting to go to a region, taste the wine alongside the cuisine that they have, perfected the pairings over many, many centuries, getting to meet the winemakers, hear about the history of the region because they've just seen the land and the development over so many years. It's a really great way of understanding the world. And I think everyone's looking for a richer way of experiencing travel nowadays because it's become so commodified. And I think that wine, especially in regions like Priorat or Mosul, even though I still really like Bordeaux and whatnot. Yeah. Don't worry, I still love Bordeaux. But I think I think the word authentic is so overused, so I hesitate to use it, but I think it is one of the most authentic and rich travel experiences we have left.
Yeah, I think that's right. Well, and the interesting thing about whether it's Bordeaux or Burgundy, Napa, you can still have those experiences, but you have to know somebody. That's the difference, and that's really why we started Vines Global, because we know these people, and when we go to so many of these regions, and when we're up in Napa, you're hanging out with Jeff and Tony at Hourglass or Ravana at Ravana, and those kind of. When you get to meet the people behind the wines, especially in those blue chip areas, it's really special.
It changes everything. Yeah, completely agree.
Here's the thing. We love wine, but we also love bonfires, long dinners, eating pizza at midnight with winemakers, and people who don't take themselves too seriously. That's what the Vines is really all about. Yes, you're going to make your own wine, and yes, it's going to taste amazing. But the best part? You'll probably leave with a few new friends. Follow @the_Vines Winemakers and take a look.
Pilar, first of all, I want to say thank you because I use your content as a resource.
That makes me really happy.
For someone like me who did not grow up with wine, traveling to different regions and being, at a dinner with folks, I want to know something. I want to have some baseline knowledge. And so, before I head to Burgundy, I'm scrolling through your Instagram to say like, ooh, did she do something on wines from Burgundy that I should know? So how do you approach your content? I mean, how do you come up with your ideas? I mean, it comes through very easy to digest, and I think it's really helpful. And I think there's a lot of people out there like me that enjoy your content and learning quickly. So how do you develop that?
That's a great question. I want to hear it, but also maybe you can even start with like, you're clearly in the kind of wine education world, but how do you describe what you do? Because for the people that haven't seen your Instagram or aren't members of your Substack, which both are highly, highly recommended from us. So maybe just talk a little bit about like if when you meet somebody who's like, oh, I'm into wine. What do you do? How would you describe it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then I'll get into Brian's question. So I'll say I'm a content creator and my main topic is wine, but it's mostly around how wine can enhance your life. I don't call it, it technically is wine education because I'm talking a lot about producers and regions.
But you're not talking about bricks and levels of alcohol. I mean, you do sometimes, but it's not like the core.
Yeah,
there's other places for that.
And I used to actually. And then I really gave a lot of, because social media was totally new to me when I started this just a little bit over a year ago. I did not follow any influencers. It was not something that had crossed my mind previously. So I spent a lot of time thinking about the philosophy of how I communicate. So, and this kind of relates to Brian's question too. When I actually have time to explain to someone what I do, the short answer is always I'm a content creator. My focus is wine. If I have time to explain it to someone a little bit more, I'll say, I'm a content creator. My focus is wine. The main idea behind it is how wine can enhance your life and be a tool for developing and enhancing your taste and expressing your taste. And I started doing that for a couple of reasons. One is that, there's this fundamental belief that I had that we should never try to take the aspiration out of wine. And we should never try to make it less complicated than it is, because that's part of the beauty of it. And I wasn't loving the hyper accessibility trend I was seeing in the market. So one of my core philosophies is communicating to my community as what I believe they are and what they certainly are, which is extraordinarily intelligent, capable people where this is probably never going to be their full-time job, but they are entirely able to keep up and catch up if this is something that they want to put effort into. And if they're on my page, they're probably willing to put effort into wine. So I just kind of make that assumption. So I retain a lot of the aspirational quality while trying to greet people with a lot of warmth. That's kind of one of my core philosophies. And the other is that I think that I don't want to say people are looking for an edge. That's not the right way to describe it. But I think that people are looking for ways to develop themselves constantly. And I think that wine is often just communicated as this beverage that tastes really good, but really it's a way to develop your understanding of history, develop your understanding of what you like, why you like it, figuring out how to express that. When you collect wine, you're building a collection that's actually an expression of your experiences and your life and what your preferences are and the stories that you've heard and the people that you've connected with. And I think that that is really the best way to develop interest in the wine industry. So initially I was actually talking a lot more about like, here's what tannins are and here's what it means for wine to have different alcohol levels. And I just kind of realized for most people don't care about that. I think they're interested enough in learning about it. Like I think they'll ask the question and they want to hear it, but...
Or if they are, there's lots of resources for that.
Yeah, and there are lots of resources for that. There are great books out there. Like I highly recommend The Wine Bible by Karen McNeil to anyone. It's fantastic. But I think that what people are most interested in is experiencing wine and using wine as a business tool, as a social tool, as a community building tool, as a travel tool, and as a tool for personal taste. So anyway, that's kind of a mix of answers of both how I think about my content and what I tell people. So just to kind of revisit, I basically say content creator around wine, but how wine can enhance your life and express your taste.
When I first saw your content, it was something like, you're going to a business dinner. These are the wines that you should know. These are the ones you should avoid. These are the typical ones that everybody orders. These are where you might want to go. I thought that was really super practical and interesting. And all of us that have had a business dinner with somebody that knows way more about wine than we do and probably has a bigger budget than we do to go into that and it's totally intimidating. Like, could I just buy the Opus One because that's what everybody buys? Like
Which, by the way, I did feature Opus One because I think everyone needs to know what those are for business dinners in the U.S.
And it's a lovely wine, but you don't need to have it every time.
No, certainly not. And I mean, that came from my personal experience too, because when I started, I mean, thankfully I had a little bit of background from wine society and law school, especially after my first couple of years. But when I started, like I said, I didn't grow up with it. So when I started having these internships at law firms or investment firms, I mean, I would just be at these happy hours and dinners with all of these, honestly, mainly men, talking about the wines that they were collecting and what to order and what they got for clients. And I remember feeling extremely intimidated. And really, it's something you can actually learn or at least pick up to a reasonable degree quite quickly. So that was kind of where it came from. Is I was like, there are honestly probably 45 wines you really need to know for these business dinners. So let's just go through them. And if you want to get deeper, go for it. But here's the 1 minute summary of what you need to know to feel comfortable.
What's a wine or two? Like, so you get invited to Keen's in New York or, steakhouse for somewhere and they hand you or we were talking yesterday about this story about the, a guy was with his to-be father-in-law and they went to, what's it called? The one in Tampa,
Burns.
Went to Burns and apparently
the
the father-in-law to be hands the wine list to the fiance and says, okay, what do you pick? And both like, do I go expensive? Do I go cheap? Do I go and what do I get? So what would your advice have been to either what region or is there a specific wine you'd be like, all right, this is where you should go in that situation?
I think that, if you're at a steakhouse, so I think there are two things to consider, or three. I think one is price. And I think that is just use your common sense. I'm not in the room with those people. And I think everyone's pretty capable of picking up on what the expectation is going to be. I think the usual answer is don't go the cheapest, don't go the most expensive,
Right.
Pick something good in the middle. I think that the other consideration is obviously pairings. So I think that, food and wine can alter the experience of the other so much. So you want to get the right pairing. And I do try to, I have a guide now up on my Substack, and in my videos, I try to talk about like what the right pairings really quickly for each wine would be. If you're at a steakhouse, you want to go something higher tannin, fuller body. So you probably want to go like a Bordeaux or a Napa or Super Tuscan or something like that. But I think the pairing really matters. And you might not always be at a steakhouse, although you frequently will be.
At a steakhouse,
Okay.
one wine that's like not going to be super typical, that's probably going to be on the list, that like would show. I mean, so if I was in that kid's seat, I'd be like, all right, obviously after you get through price, I don't want to pick like the most typical thing. I want to show that I've got like a little wine knowledge. I've got something interesting, but I also don't want to like put something out. I don't want to buy some, orange wine that they're going to be like, you might hate, right?
Well,
you got to be safe.
Say, that's kind of the third consideration is you need to know your audience a little bit. Like I tell people this because I was having a conversation with some people in my community who were kind of hating on Opus wine a little bit. And I was like, guys, actually, A, it is a good wine. You don't have to feel like it's worth the money, but it is a good wine. And B, if you're at a business dinner or a father-in-law dinner and you sense that this person really appreciates those big labels and is maybe not going to appreciate this lesser known, really special label, like you should order the Opus one. Like it depends on how much you're trying to impress them, whether you're trying to impress them. But I've been at dinners where I've tried to order like the really cool like Ronchidicella or something on the menu, and like it's just lost. Like right. I should have just gotten the 100 acre or whatever. I think it depends.
Do you have? That's a great point. So let's imagine Brian's with his future father-in-law. We're a long way from that probably, but he's at this dinner and his father knows a bunch, but like he does want to break out a little bit. He's not going to go all the way crazy, but he doesn't want to go 100 acre or Opus. What are you pointing Brian to?
If you're at a steakhouse,
and Brian's, by the way, is like texting you underneath
like, Pilar,
saying,
please.
Pilar, what do I need to do?
So if you're at a steakhouse, this person likes elite wines, but you're willing to get a little bit more. You're willing to go slightly off the beaten path, although none of these are going to be that off the beaten path, and you need something more, full bodied, and that's the kind of profile they like. I love Coruscant in Napa. Absolutely love Coruscant. It's very good value for money. And if you ask any winemaker or som in Napa or really just in the United States, what their favorite Napa wine is, like Coruscant will come up probably 80% of the time. I mean, Kathy Coruscant is a complete legend. She does a wonderful job. And that is not like the big label Napa wines, but it's fantastic. It's going to be the profile they really like. It's going to pair super well with whatever you're having at a steakhouse. And they're going to feel like they got something that's like impressive to them still, but a little bit outside of what they would normally drink or know about, that maybe they can show off to their other wine friends later as like, hey, like I'm now an insider. I now have insider knowledge of Napa or something. Another one would be, again, I'm trying to like strike the balance with, you do want to go semi well-known and impressive here, or obviously impressive here. Vega Sicilia, I know a lot of people have heard of it, but a lot of people in these situations, especially in the US, haven't.
Well, especially those typical kind of steakhouse guys, they Napa all the time, right. Maybe a little Bordeaux. They probably don't even think
exactly.
About it.
Yeah. And
plus,
I think
no one doesn't like Vega Sicilia.
No, it's impossible. Right. It's impossible. I mean, I think the Unico is one of my favorite wines in the world. And then even if you need to go a little bit lower on price, the Balbuena is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard it. The Vega Sicilia rep also, we were fortunate, came to our law school, and the way he described, he was like, the Unico is like a British lord who is, sitting in his manor. He has everything at his disposal. And then the Valbuena is that same guy with the baseball cap on vacation smoking a cigar. So they're both really fantastic wines. I would say it depends on where it sits in the list, but Unico, if you have a little bit more of a budget, Valbuena, if you need to go a little lower, they're both great.
Yeah. Well, we actually are going to, achieve a dream of mine in a few weeks, where we've got a Vines Global trip to Spain, where we're going to go taste with the winemaker at Vega Sicilia and Pingas.
Which is insane because you cannot get in if you're not an industry
This has been
person.
a 3-year process.
Yeah, I can't believe you guys pulled that off.
Whiteboarded out one day saying, all right, where do we want to go? And we named 5 or 10 places, and those other places we'll get sooner or later. But this one was like, we got that call and we're like, yes.
No, it is incredible that you guys got that. And the fact that you're then going to go to Priorat and have them meet Dominique from.
That. So we start in Madrid. We'll go over and taste it at Vega and Pingas with Peter Sisek. And then we'll go to San Sebastian, where we're having lunch at Asador Echevarri, which is my favorite restaurant in the world. It's unbelievable. And another place that's
favorite restaurant too, by the way, right?
His quote was something like, if I had to pick one restaurant to eat at before I would die, that would be it.
Yep.
And so Vegan Pingus, Asura, and then we're flying over to Priorat, where we're going to hang out with our friend and partner Dominique Uber and Tatiana from Torah Limit, and where we'll all get to blend our own Grenache and Carignan blends with them.
Which, for the benefit of everyone listening, is also completely insane. This is one of my favorite producers in the world. I love Priorat, but it's one of my favorite producers in the world. It's a much more like Burgundian style, lighter style, high acidity Priorat grown at higher elevation. And Dominique is like a complete legend. The fact that you guys have the relationship with him that you do it kind of blows my mind. It's really special.
We're really, been one of the most interesting things about getting started in this. And we were always worried, of course, that like anybody can plan a trip anywhere. But we were very lucky when we started Vines Global in 2019. Our first visit, our first partner was Casanova de Neri, and Giacomo Neri and his family are just incredibly generous. And so our first blending escape for Vines Global was to Montalcino. And this was just a pilot. This was like, we don't know if this business makes any sense.
Not
we
a
don't know
bad
if we can
pilot.
do it.
Yeah.
Let's just try it. We go over there, and the wines we blended were 2016, of course, 5-star vintage. And Giacomo, who doesn't make blends, he only does single vineyard Sangiovese for his Brunello, let us basically picked 5 single vineyards and let us get in his kitchen and blend. And he's there coaching us, and Pierluigi and his son are there. And it was just a really magical experience. And in fact, we tried the wine yesterday. What'd you think of the wine? What'd you think of the
I
Brunello?
loved everything. I loved everything we had so much. I mean, it's like hard not to, because you guys welcomed me with an incredible asado lunch with great people outside. And I think it might have been my 7th glass of wine. It was great. I loved it. And I got to try the ones that you made with Dominic and everything as well. And yeah, everything was phenomenal.
Yeah, we kind of went around the world yesterday. We had our champagne with Rapier,
which was also... Yeah,
good,
no complaints about
people.
that. That was phenomenal.
So as you said, this is your second visit to Argentina and the vines?
This is my second visit to Mendoza and the vines, yeah.
Fantastic.
Last time I was here, I just ate at Siete Fuegos, but I loved it. I remember being incredibly impressed by it and was really happy when Brian reached out to come back. And I love Mendoza. This region is incredible.
Yeah, what's your impressions? What would you say to somebody who maybe has been to Napa and Bordeaux or Italy, Tuscany? What would you say, like, why should they come to Argentina? What are your kind of impressions about it?
Yeah, one of your friends who I met last night, I asked him, because it was his first visit down here, and I asked him what he thought of it, and I thought he put it really well. He was like, this is what Napa was 20 years ago. Like,
I think it might have been more like 50 years ago, but
more
yes.
like 50. I agree with that. He said 20, but I completely agree with that. Both times I've come to Mendoza, the things that have really stood out to me have been... which I think is what we're all seeking when we go to wine regions in general, but it's really amplified here, is the communal aspect of everything, like the communal asado lunches. I mean, you said this yesterday when we were at lunch, it's one of your favorite parts of Argentina, not just like the grilled meat over the open fire, which is impossible not to love, but the fact that it lends itself to spending 6-hour lunches outside with your friends, catching up, drinking your 7th glass of,
And most of us didn't know each other.
No, and we had a phenomenal time, and I ended up staying out with you guys until like 2 a.m.
Thank God I left early.
Yeah. But I think that the communal emphasis on, or the emphasis on how people just eat and cook and drink so communally here and are extraordinarily friendly, are extraordinarily tied to extraordinarily tied to the land. I don't know if that's not quite the way I want to put it, but basically it's really hard not to feel a really deep connection to the region and the wine that you're drinking when you're, eating cows that probably came from a few pastures away. You're looking right at the Andes, where all of the glaciers come down and irrigate the entire region. And you're drinking this, I mean, in many cases, Malbec, which is the region the grape that this region is so famous for. Like, there's a very, I think that so many wine regions, even though I love so many of them, have become a little bit commodified and internationalized, which I completely understand. I mean, they're businesses, but I think that this is one of the last places, or it's one of the few places where you can get an extremely high-end experience. Like, there are incredible restaurants, wonderful hotels here, very good hospitality training overall at all of the different, bodegas that you would visit. But at the same time, it doesn't feel overdeveloped, and it feels extremely unique. Like, the architecture, the eating, the style of winemaking, you're not going to get it anywhere else. And you're reminded of that every time that you look around and with everything you eat. And I think that it's really, really special. There's a really, really different energy here.
Yeah, I think that's true. So today you're actually going to blend your own wine here at the Vines. We might have to do a follow-up to kind of post blending report. Have you made your own wine before?
I've never made my own wine before.
Exciting.
No.
What are your thoughts? What are your expectations? How you feeling about that?
I have good expectations just because I've heard amazing things about the team. So, and I know I've heard a lot about your guys' philosophy about how you have an incredible team that helps to guide people through, but also leaves room for individual creativity and expression through the wine. So I have very high expectations, which I'm very, very excited for. I think that, I really appreciate a very well-balanced wine. And I think that's one of the hallmarks of quality in any wine. And creating a very balanced wine is much easier said than done. And I'm just very excited to give it a try. I'm honestly a little bit intimidated because I think that I'm in the position where I'm constantly talking about producers that I like and tasting wines that I really like and talking about whether I feel that this wine is balanced or going to age well and has the right level of primary fruit intensity, and then being put in a position where it's like, oh, I'm actually going to create this myself now. This is like a lot easier said than done. It's slightly intimidating, but I also know you have a great team to help guide me through it. So I'm really excited.
What about your label? I mean, you've seen some of our labels. You saw.
I learned I was blending like 30 minutes ago. So
well, you got to start someplace.
Or a wine name? Have you thought about that yet? Like, what would your wine be called? What could your wine be called?
So Commando G already has a label called Pilar, so I can't use that, which I'm a little bummed by.
And it's a great wine.
I haven't had it.
Oh.
I've had Commando G, but I haven't had the Pilar. Yeah,
I'm
excited to try that at some point. Guys, I don't have a satisfactory answer for that right now.
Okay.
I think we're gonna have to revisit it. I had, when I was growing up, I learned that this is not going to be the label of my wine, but I learned that my great-grandmother was a moonshiner in Wisconsin.
Awesome.
And her name was Mabel Rummelfinger, which I think is hilarious. So I always thought if I ever started a liquor brand, it would be called Mabel Rummelfinger, but I don't think I can do that for wine. So,
well, if you have an entry-level wine, maybe you could do that.
Yeah,
I don't see that with your like iconic $300 wine.
I don't see it with my brand in general right now. No. But maybe later in life, or maybe I can pivot. Yeah, that's the only label that I've had in my mind that I would use at some point. But I also, clearly these are all just memeable. The other one that I had, which again is not going to align with the kind of wines we're making today, is a Chardonnay that is for men who secretly really love Chardonnay but don't want to admit it. And I want to call it Butter Boy. And even though it wouldn't actually be a very buttery Chardonnay, I want to call it Butter Boy. And I'm thinking like a canned Chardonnay with like a farmer who really loves male farmer on the label. None of this is aligned with the kind of wine that we're going to make today. All of my ideas have been kind of memeable wine label ideas so far. So I'm going to have to give this real consideration.
I like that. So just let's go back to general on wine. What opinion do you have about wine that many people might disagree with?
I mean, I think one of them that is a hot take in the industry right now, although I think more and more people are coming around to it, is that I don't like the hyper-accessibility trend, and I don't think you should ever try to take the aspiration out of what is fundamentally an aspirational product, because then you're left with none of the aspiration and all of the alcohol, so why would people buy it?
Right. Have a live Catonic.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's probably my most, right now, controversial opinion on wine. I think that another one I have that, and I'm not a doctor, so, take this with a grain of salt, but I know that there's a lot coming out about how, and of course I would never argue that alcohol is good for you, obviously, like drink in moderation, but there's a lot coming out about how, wine is not as good for your health as people thought it was, although I know there are conflicting studies about this. But I think that what's overlooked in the health component is that communal aspect. Like they say that the most important measure of longevity and living a really good life into your later years is having really strong social connections. It's not fitness, it's not diet, it is having friends. It's having friends, getting together with friends really frequently. And I think that the role wine plays in that is huge. Like the role it plays in gathering people around a table for a really long time, breaking down social barriers, even just having one glass, not because you're drunk, just because you're sharing a really meaningful product together, you're sharing a really meaningful beverage together. The way that you can just pop open a bottle of wine without having to cook an entire dinner if you want to have someone over. Like it plays a really important role, I think, in longevity. And I think that we're taking a very narrow view of it and just seeing that, okay, alcohol is bad for you, which it is. But socialization, meaningful connections, and the role wine can play in that are just as, if not more important, in my opinion.
Maybe there's some threads for your future label around community and longevity and,
totally.
and all of that. What's something you used to believe about wine that you've since changed your mind about? if anything?
That natural or organic or biodynamic wines are things I don't like and connote a specific style. I think that now...
Worst marketing in the world, natural wine.
It is. And I mean, part of that is like, it doesn't really have a real definition, but it's interesting because when I first started getting into wine, I liked, the more traditional old school European style of making wine and wasn't super into that very like natty, almost kombucha-like style. Right. And as I learned more about natural winemaking, organic winemaking, biodynamic processes, I learned that really a lot of the top producers in the world that have that more traditional profile,
they're totally natural.
Yeah.
Giacomo's not putting anything in his. It's got stuff in there.
No. That's how they're making amazing wines. Right. I mean, I think Chateau Palmer is like has been fully organic for forever, and they're one of my favorite wines. So now I'll get these questions, and for what it's worth, like I also have become a little bit more flexible, and it could be because I live in LA, but like if I'm on a patio, I want a $15 glass, like I'm happy to drink a more natty style. I'm not going to try to age it in my cellar, but like I'm happy to have it. I like it for what it is. I'd never argue it's amazing, but I like it for what it is. But I get this question from wine lovers frequently who are like, ooh, what do you think about natural wine? Expecting some like incendiary response from me. And I'm just like, I mean, that could mean anything. That could mean any style. And most of the best winemakers have at least low intervention, somewhat natural practices to their farming and viticulture. So that my perspective on that has changed a lot. And I think that that's something I would love to see more people having more awareness of.
Yeah, I think we need to, I mean, there is something about, and there those, I think like the way you described it is kind of like more natty wines or like kombucha-like, or those, non-filtered and cloudy and all of this stuff. It's interesting. For me, it's almost like a different food.
It's a different category.
It's a different wine.
Agree. Yeah.
And part of the problem is that by calling it natural, you're like, you would never, as you're talking about some of those more, like if you go to a natural wine bar in New York, the wines, they're not serving even DRC. They're not serving like, or Casa Venere, they're not serving these low intervention wines. They're serving the quote more out there wines. And so it's almost like they need a new name or something.
Yeah, completely agree.
What's one misconception? So in your education, is there a misconception about wine that you really love helping people overcome?
I think it's that, and this is a pretty basic one, but it comes up so frequently. I get so many people who say, oh, I can't taste the difference between wines, or I'm not a good wine taster. And I think that's almost like saying like, oh, I'm not a good computer programmer. Like you've just never trained yourself to do it. Like anything, it's actually a very learnable skill. And what I tell people who say that always is I'm like, do you like food? Do you like to eat? And they're like, yeah, typically. I mean, I've had one person say no. We're not friends, but just kidding. I mean, they'll always say yeah. And I'm like, if you like to eat and you enjoy food, you can 100% become a good wine taster, because really all it is exposing your palate to as many flavors as possible and then practicing in a group, relating all of the aromas and flavors that you're getting in a wine to the other sense, like the other aromas and flavors that you've experienced in real life. So it's sitting around with a group and trying, smelling Gewürztraminer and saying like, oh, I smell lychee fruit. Or it's sitting, opening a bottle of Barsac and saying, oh, this actually kind of reminds me of when I played tennis and opened a fresh can of tennis balls the other day. Like those aren't things that you would naturally think to pull out if you haven't been practicing it. But the second you start consciously thinking about it, comparing wine side by side and sharing notes with the group, like anyone can do it. So I think that's like the biggest misconception is just, I can't taste wine. I'm not a good taster. So many people
have that perception. And it's what I always tell people is like, just start naming everything, not just wine. You're having pancakes in the morning. What are you tasting? What are you feeling? And express that and talk to the other person who's sitting next to you having the pancakes. And just like, because part of it is getting a shared vocabulary and sort of like the things you say.
100%.
And it's not so that you can do the party trick and say, oh, this has red fruit. The red fruits is always easy.
Yeah, dark fruit. That's my go-to.
But tobacco and leather and all of these things to say it. But like the more you can understand the aspects of a wine that lead to the aspects of wine that you like, then you can communicate that to a great somm or a great wine shop, and you can end up buying better wines and having a much bigger hit rate of wines that you love.
100%. Yeah, completely agree with that.
Yeah, that I think is really interesting.
You know how people always say, this wine reminds me of a place? Well, what if it actually was from that place? With the Vines, you don't just drink the wine, you help make it. We travel to incredible regions, work with amazing winemakers, and yes, you can even blend your own barrel. It's hands-on, a little messy, and a lot of fun. Follow us on Instagram @TheVinesWinemakers and come and see what we're bottling next.
how do you decide what wine to open on a special occasion? If it's a birthday, anniversary, or some special occasion, what's your go-to?
My go-tos are typically champagne and Sauterne because, it's just really hard to beat those. I think that it partly depends on, what are we eating? I think pairings are huge. It depends on who I'm with. Do I want to expose these people to something I know they like or, relate to an experience we've had together in the past and repeat that with a similar bottle? Or do I want to expose them to something completely new? And then...
Pick one of each. One champagne of like... classic down the road, crowd pleaser, but one that's like a little more interesting. And then same thing for Decam is obviously the gold standard for that.
Yeah. There's not as much variation in Sauterne, at least not that I've had, but I think that for champagne, I actually really do like the large houses as well. But I love Grower champagne, as most people who are into wine do. So Pure Peter's is one that like people just always like. And I always keep it in my fridge. It's phenomenal. If I want to do something more interesting, I think Chavos makes some really interesting stuff, or Margay. I really, really like Margays. Like they're very, there's a lot of depth to those champagnes. And I think that that's very, to people who haven't had a lot of champagne exposure, I think that level of depth and richness and there's almost a savory quality to them that's really, really interesting, especially for people who think they don't like champagne. So those would probably be my champagne examples. For Sauterne, again, like you're not gonna. I personally, I haven't found much variation in the profile,
just in price.
Yeah, but in price, Decam would drink it any day of my life. But I love Sudero. I think Sudero is fantastic. You can get younger vintages for like $50 a bottle. And that is one where if I maybe don't want to open a bottle of Decam because I'm not, and it's not like I have that many bottles, but if I maybe don't want to open a bottle of Decam because I'm not sure, like this person is new to Sauterne and I want to kind of get them to appreciate it. Like there are certain wines you really want to open with people who are going to appreciate it. Sudero is one where, because of the price point and because I do actually have quite a bit of it, I'm very comfortable opening it. And I feel like it is one of the best introductions to Sauterne you can get.
And then you can have it more often. Yeah. I love Sauterne. I drink it
it's the best.
Probably once a year, twice a year, just because it's that special occasion, that special bottle. And I need to drink. I think I need a lot more Sauterne in my life.
You should be drinking it every week.
I love that. I love that. Do you have what's your go-to wine for under $50? Even maybe 30 to 50. Like somebody's like, maybe they don't have a huge budget, but they want to drink something that's interesting, maybe a little bit off the beaten path.
Yeah, I have a lot that are kind of like right at that $50 mark.
It's a great price point.
It's a really, really good price point.
Very high quality. I think it's just in the 20 to 30, it's really hard. And then at the 100, there's a million and it's hard. It gets hard again. It's almost like 50 is a great spot.
Yeah, completely. I think, so there are some really good in the 30 to 50 range. If I'm going under 50, because if I'm at 50, like I love Cuvée Los Andes. That one's really fantastic.
It's just money every time.
It's so good. It's so good. I can't believe that wine is $50. And there's actually you can get like a lot of like 2010s Bordeaux and up. That's like second, third, fourth growth. That's really, really good in that price range. But
that actually reminds me when you were talking about Valbuena, which is a great tip for people. Many of the second wines from anywhere around the world are phenomenal and way better values.
Yeah, completely agree. I love the Palmer Alter Ego. I love it. I think it's fantastic. In the 30 to 50 range, there are a lot of wines in the Santa Rita Hills that I really like. Like that's been, Santa Rita Hills has been a really interesting revelation for me since I moved to California. They make, for those listening who aren't as familiar, like wine regions in California are much more affected by ocean currents than by latitude. So just by being pretty close to LA, you can actually grow some very cool climate Pinot Noir and Chardonnay there. That's very interesting. These are kind of on the higher end of that 30 to 50 range, but like Sandy and Liquid Farm, I think makes some really, really interesting stuff. I really like their teams too. There's also some great stuff out of Loire that's in like that 30 to 50 range. That's extremely high quality. If I'm going on the lower range, like Olga Raffo, just like a classic Chinon for like $35, always really, really good. JP and Jackie Blow make, I think, some of the best stuff in that 30 to 50 range. And they have so many different options in that range. Like their Taiolu 000 is like $38. It's technically a pet nat, but it's one of the best sparkling wines I've ever had. I don't think anyone could call it blind. Absolutely phenomenal. They both, white sparkling and a rosé sparkling. And then all of their Monlois-sous-Loire whites are really good. Their Bourgogne reds are really, really good. And they're all kind of in that 30 to 50 range. And you would think that they're closer to 100 for quality. They're some of the best winemakers in France.
That's good. That's great. That's helpful. What's one wine you wish you had in your collection right now that you would just like walk by and say, I can't wait to open that someday?
I wish I had more like really high-end champagne, like Ceylon and Salos. I don't have either of those. And I wish I had quite a lot of those.
We were very fortunate and we were able to go do a tasting at Ceylon a few years ago. And
That's incredible.
It was mind blowing. But we're there and we're tasting, and I honestly didn't know that much about champagne. I was like, this is phenomenal. I know it's expensive. I want to, I'd like to buy some. I'm in the tasting room, and they're like, no, you can't buy it. We don't have any to sell. Like, are you really?
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah, no, I if I had the opportunity to stock my cellar with it, I'd buy an entirely new wine fridge for that. No question.
Yeah, that's pretty special. All right. If you're stranded on a desert island, what wine and food would you want with you?
Oh, someone asked me this recently, and I did say Sauternes, and she was like, that's pretty weird.
Just Sauternes and blue cheese, nothing else.
On a desert island? Yeah, I mean, if I'm living out my last days on a desert island, like throwing some foie gras, that sounds great. I mean, am I going for survival or enjoyment here?
I think you're going for enjoyment.
Oh, then yeah. Then Sauternes and some foie gras or something, and I'll live out my last days really well. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so if you had to host a dinner with 4 guests, living or dead, no family, who would they be and what wines would you serve? So I'm often asked this where you get one guest, and my current answer right now is Nathan Fielder. So for those of you who aren't familiar, I don't even know how to categorize him. He's this really brilliant, creative comedian. He did Nathan For You, The Rehearsal, The Curse, and 2 of which are kind of non-fictional, one of which is fictional, technically. And all of his work is it's the most creative stuff I have seen coming out in media. And I think he seems like an incredibly interesting person. He's extremely vulnerable on camera. So I think he would be a very interesting dinner party guest, because I don't know if he would hold back in conversation, which would be fantastic. So that's one of my answers. For those of you who haven't seen his stuff, I really highly recommend it, although it will make you very uncomfortable for a very long time.
For sure.
Bernard Arnault, just am a huge fan of his and everything he's created with LVMH. I learned what LVMH was in like 8th grade, and I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever heard of in my entire life. And since then, have always wanted to meet him, been a really huge fan.
It's interesting to see how uncomfortable Nathan would be.
Well, I'm also like, what's the most interesting combination of people I could possibly get here? Because I'm fortunate to get to have dinner with a lot of people who have very easy conversation and a lot in common. And I would love to just mishmash and see what happens. I feel like I want to throw in a winemaker, maybe Didier Dagenau. I mean, it's living or dead, right?
Yeah, sure.
So, okay. So maybe Didier Dagenau, for people who aren't aware, he is a really legendary winemaker from the Loire Valley, was like a motorcycle racer, like a total he was like a complete rebel in the Loire. And he made some of my favorite bottles from France, particularly the Silex or Silex, if you pronounce it in English. He really defined what that region could do. And he just seems like a really interesting person who I would love to meet. 4th person. Oh, I feel like I'm going to need a second on this one. The first 3 were really easy. And is it no family? No family. Like, okay.
I think you need a woman.
No, I was just thinking that. Greta Gerwig.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah, Greta Gerwig. My family were huge Greta Gerwig fans. Even before she became a director, we watched all of her movies. We love her sense of humor. She wrote a really interesting modern love column in the New York Times that is just fascinating and hilarious and unhinged. And I think she's clearly brilliant too. I think she'd be a really great addition to the group.
Well, all 4 of those are pretty brilliant.
Yeah.
What are you serving?
Am I cooking?
Sure.
Okay. I'd probably, be a little scared to serve Didier's wines to him and pair them. So maybe I'm gonna move away from that. My usual go-to is I either do a really good or buttery roast chicken with a Loire Valley white. That's one of my usual go-tos. Or I really like making tagine. I love tagine. I lived in Morocco for a little bit when I was in college, and not many people make it. It's actually very easy, and it's fun.
And it's so good.
It's so good. And it's fun to do wine pairings with it because no one else does it. And it makes your kitchen smell so good because it's been cooking there all day. So maybe, I don't know. I feel like serving a tagine to Bernard Arnault is a little intimidating, but hey, I'm going for a crazy mishmash dinner. So yeah, maybe I do some sort of chicken and apricot tagine with a Saignée rosé, like Chateau Simon or like Mas Julienne or something. I think that would be really fun. And that would be very different from what I think any of them would normally be having. So.
And then you'll finish up with the Chem, of course.
Oh, of course.
What year?
Yeah. It's interesting because obviously there are better vintages in Sauternes than others, but with a great producer like that, like nothing they actually release is going to be bad. Somewhere between like 85 to 95, just because I think that's like a really, Sauternes ages incredibly well, but I do like a little bit of the vibrancy and freshness. So I don't want to like go too late. I'd be going somewhere in that range.
Actually, that brings up an interesting question. That one of the things that I struggle with is like, how do you think about determining vintage or thinking about vintages? Like, is it just literally just memorizing these are the best ones? I mean, because I struggle with it. I mean, I look it up. If I'm going to dinner or whatever, I'll sitting there Googling to figure out. But I know some people kind of just have, can rattle off the best vintages of certain places. But like, A, how important is that? And B, how would you suggest that I train myself in that, or where would you start on that?
Yeah, so I think that when people are able to really rattle off vintages, I mean, they've usually spent either decades in the industry or it's a particular region that they know really well. Like I could tell you, because I had a huge focus on the Left Bank Bordeaux and did like Left Bank Bordeaux wine tasting competitions. I could tell you what the best vintages were in the past 20 years there, for example. Couldn't tell you for like basically anywhere else. Right. So like if you're at a restaurant and someone is like rattling off vintages, it's usually because they know that region especially well. It's not because they would know that for everywhere. I honestly think just get a vintage chart. Like I was at Wally's and I asked one of the somms like, hey, how do you remember this? And he pulled up his phone and he was like, oh, I don't. And he was like, are you kidding me? Like why? There are so many wines in the world. Like he pulled up a vintage chart and it just literally has, I mean, I can try to find it and send it to you. I haven't used it in so long just because I'm not even sure how useful it is, to be honest, but it just literally marks it by color, like green to red. Like, was this a good vintage or was this a bad vintage by region? I think that in terms of importance, I think that if you're working with, I think it depends on the producer, but I think that the best producers in the world are just not going to release something that's not good. Yeah. And I think that I have seen producers do incredible things with what were supposedly bad vintages. Like, for example, like 2011 Ponte Cane, that was a terrible year. Really good. It's really, really good.
Plus in buying, quote, down vintages, you can get a way better value.
Yeah, totally. And then you have to see, like, if they're age-worthy wines, which the best producers are going to make age-worthy wines, like, they can often develop in the bottle in a way that's really favorable. Like, a vintage that people thought wasn't so good can drink really well 10 years later. So I would say it's... I think it's less about, there's definitely something to it, but when you're working with a really good producer, I just think it's a little bit more about the profile you like. Like if it's like a warmer year and you like that kind of like riper fruit, bolder mouth feel, like that is important to know because it's more about your personal taste. But I think that, I don't know, I just think if you're at a restaurant and everything on the list is just like a fantastic producer, like I wouldn't stress about it too much because you're probably going to have
also you trust a great restaurant not only picks great producers and wines, they're also going to pick vintages. They're
100%.
Not going to try and sell you 20 Napa Cap. Like
100%.
they're gonna be there if they're trustworthy. The challenge is when you get to a random restaurant, right?
Yeah, 100%. I also think where vintage matters is like, again, I do think I see people get a little bit too stressed. I think about, or in my opinion, about like not opening a wine too early. Like I posted a story where I was drinking like a 2018 Ponte Cane and some people in my community, like understandably were like, it's too early. Like, how are you doing this? And it was like, it's drinking great. Like, I'm sure it'll drink great in 20 years too, but it's great right now. I think that, but I do think knowing like, is this a wine that really is intended for aging and is just not going to drink well yet? Like a lot of Vendel, for example, like you really don't want to drink that young. So that's where knowing vintage matters, and knowing vintage and how vintage and aging relate to like the development of the wine and the way it's intended to be drunk can really matter. But a lot of producers, even nowadays, I mean, modern consumption, people want to drink things earlier now. Yeah. Like they don't want to cellar things for as long. I think there are pros and cons to that, but a lot of producers are shifting to make their wines drinkable earlier. So
and a lot of us are drinking fresher wines, lower alcohol wines. I mean, the kind of call it a bounce back from Robert Parker or whatever, but there's definitely a trend.
It probably is, yeah.
Pilar, this has been fantastic. It's been wonderful to get to know you. I'm sure this is just the beginning of our journey together, and hopefully we'll have you on some of our our trips later this year. And good luck with the blending this afternoon.
I'm so
We're
excited.
going to have to do a follow-up to see how it went. Where can people find you? Tell us a little bit about, like, if people that are inspired by this conversation and they want to get meet more Pilar in their life, where should they look?
Well, that would make me very flattered. And I'm on Instagram at bar Pilar with 2 R's at the end. I could not get the handle with 1 R. It was taken by a bar in DC that I think has like 14 followers. So bar Pilarr. I'm on Instagram and TikTok as that, although honestly, I put a lot more effort into my Instagram. And then I'm on Substack at barpilar.substack.com, spelled the same way. And our Substack community is very strong. If you're at all interested in wine, I really encourage you to join the group chat.
I joined just a couple weeks ago, and
great.
I'm really it's a lot, and there's a lot of movement going on there, which is good. But it's also it's searchable, and like it's a great resource, and it's also it's great to hear from you, but it's also really beautiful, the community that you're developing.
That's the part that I'm enjoying the most about it, is like someone's in there every day saying like, hey, I'm traveling to this wine region and I need your recommendations. And you get like 10 people who jump in and give recommendations that I actually wouldn't have known about because I haven't been to every wine region or had every wine.
Well, we're going to try and fix that.
Yes, we are going to try to fix that. Or you get people who are just sharing bottles that they're really excited about. And it's been very cool too. I very much see my role as just helping people discover wine and then actually kind of getting out of the way a little bit and letting people experience it for themselves and develop their own communities around it. And it's, for people who are really interested, the Substack group chat is really, really great. I think they'll meet some really interesting people there.
Well, congratulations. We love what you do, and we're glad to have you back at the Vines. You're welcome anytime, and we'll have another asado, and
can't wait.
We'll see you soon. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.